Royal stories used to be gathered on the road. They were picked up in hotel bars, airport lounges, press buses, palace corridors, charity trips, and long waits outside doors that might or might not open. Today, many of those same stories begin in controlled briefings, carefully managed access, and private WhatsApp groups, where every line of a schedule can become a story in itself. And that change says a great deal about the royal family now, because the biggest battle around the monarchy is no longer simply who gets photographed, it is who gets trusted. When veteran royal correspondents Robert Jobson and Charles Ray look back on the old Diana years, they are not just being nostalgic about a rougher, faster, more competitive press pack. They are describing a world where access had to be earned, information had to be checked, and a reporter learned the difference between what was visible and what was actually happening. That difference matters more than ever, because so many modern royal controversies depend on appearances. A princess arriving at a designer studio can look like she has no security, even if a protection officer is just outside.
Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield's here. Welcome to Royally Unfiltered, the show that takes you behind palace gates like never before. This week, helping me tackle all the biggest headlines is journalist and author of The Windsor Legacy, Robert Jobson, and journalist and former Sun Royal correspondent Charles Ray. And Jobson just said to Ray, I had to deal with you a lot on the road. So I love that I'm getting to witness such a beautiful, gentle, kind reunion between some old chums.
It was never that good. No,
it was better than it is today, mate. Honestly, it was quite fun on the road when Charlie and I were on the road.
A private family meeting can look like a reconciliation, even if the people who matter most are not in the room. A charity event can look like a royal duty, even if the surrounding publicity is serving a personal brand. And an environmental prize can look political to some critics, even if its real purpose is practical, measurable, and designed to bring money and attention to solutions. This is where the current royal divide becomes clearer. On one side, there is the monarchy as an institution, slow, frustrating, cautious, but built on continuity and restraint. On the other side, there is the Sussex model, emotional, media-driven, commercially aware, and always trying to decide how close it can stand to the crown without accepting the rules that come with it. The discussion around Harry, Meghan, King Charles, William, Diana's memory, Martha Stewart, Invictus, legal bills, and Earthshot may sound like several separate stories.
Ever drank in his life, he used to be a brilliant observer of everything. And so I was trying to get this story about Mother Teresa, Diana going to see Mother Teresa, and I was talking to this this former diplomat at the bar, and Charlie was watching my every move, and we did a deal to write that Diana was going on a mercy mission to see Diana in Rome, which was a big story, which we cut out Mr. Whittaker from the story, which was quite a bold move, I think.
Whittaker, I haven't heard that name in so long, but you used to hear it around Princess Diana a lot.
But it is really one story. It is about what happens when royal access is treated as a prize instead of a responsibility. That is why the memories from Robert Jobson and Charles Ray are more than old newsroom colour. They remember a time when royal reporting meant being physically present. Jobson talks about travelling with Ray through places as demanding as the Himalayas and Zimbabwe, following royal tours and charity missions long before the modern media machine became so centralised. They were not simply sitting by a phone waiting for a palace spokesperson to send a line. They were on the ground, building contacts, watching behaviour, noticing tensions, and sometimes breaking stories the palace would rather not have seen in print. Jobson's recollection of trying to land the story of Princess Diana going to see Mother Teresa is a perfect example of that older culture. It involved reading a room, talking to the right person at the right moment, and understanding that royal news was often hidden in the quiet details around the official schedule.
Blessed to have worked alongside James and Harry and Charlie, because they were all I think that in those days, if you're talking about the way that a lot of things are dealt with now, which is rather tedious, actually, you've got to be in a WhatsApp group here and there, and it really was about getting out on the road, getting the stories, making contacts, and breaking those stories, whether the palace liked it or not.
That is true. It does feel like they are in more control than ever. But do you see a difference? Because you mentioned WhatsApp groups, and when I was there,
Also mentions names like James Whittaker and Harry Arnold, royal correspondents from an earlier generation who became fixtures of the beat. Whether people liked them or not, they represented a form of reporting that was intrusive at times, yes, but also deeply embedded. The reporters knew the rhythms of the institution because they lived around it. They traveled with it. They saw the patterns repeat. That experience made them hard to fool. They understood that palaces brief, courtiers shade, royals signal, and private emotions do not always match public gestures. In the modern version of the royal beat, much more is mediated through digital control. Emails, group chats, embargoes, selected access, approved photographs, and statements calibrated down to the syllable. That does not mean old royal reporting was noble and today's reporting is shallow. It means the battlefield changed. The palace now has more tools to manage access, while people outside the working monarchy, especially Harry and Meghan, have tried to build their own parallel systems of control.
last month, there was an explosion over the Sussex WhatsApp group and how some of the members of it felt like they were led astray or given bad information. Do you feel like the Sussexes try to control it or have the same control that the palace does? Or have they not mastered that yet when it comes to...
I think, Kinsey, it's all about this, it's all to do with like the way that social media, post-Levis inquiry has sort of taken over, the fact that there's limited things that can be done without clearing it from the palace. But I think, I'm not a member of this WhatsApp group.
The Sussex WhatsApp issue is important for exactly that reason. The complaint was not simply that a schedule changed. Royal schedules change all the time. Weather intervenes, security shifts, travel changes, health issues arise, and officials quietly rewrite the day. The deeper issue was credibility. If a team sends information saying Meghan will attend certain events, and then those plans are changed or contradicted, journalists and broadcasters are left wondering whether the problem is an innocent adjustment or a pattern of message management. Jobson makes the point that the staff member named in the discussion as Amelia Maguire should not be treated as the villain if she was simply distributing information she had been given. The problem sits higher up. If the two people at the center of the operation are not consistent with their own public relations, the communication structure cannot save them. This is where the Sussexes keep running into the same wall.
The Royal Rota, which is a slightly different thing.
And way better. Oh, way better.
Yeah. The Sussexes are trying to do it in a way that they can be in control like that. But I don't blame Liam Maguire on this. I mean, he basically was told by his boss to put out a schedule, and then obviously it all changed. It wasn't a bad thing PR-wise to put out a schedule, but on that schedule it said that Meghan was going to be accompanying him, and she was going to be at this event and that event, and specified it. So clearly the two at the top are very not consistent with their own PR.
Very, very true. Well, we mentioned the Diana years, and
They want the benefits of controlled access, but controlled access only works when the audience believes the people doing the controlling. Buckingham Palace can be opaque, and sometimes maddeningly so, but it has institutional weight behind it. Its silence can frustrate the press, because it comes from an office that still holds constitutional authority and national symbolism. Harry and Meghan's silence or selective briefing lands differently because they are no longer working royals. They left the rota system, rejected the old arrangement, and then tried to create a new channel where they could shape coverage without the same obligations. That is why even a schedule becomes a credibility test. If you want to operate like a royal court, you need more than a group chat. You need discipline, consistency, and a reason for the public to believe that the access is serving something larger than image. The same theme appears in the Amanda Wakely story about Princess Diana. Wakely described Diana arriving at her small Chelsea studio in a surprisingly relaxed way, even apologizing for being early.
As Diana's security detail was surprisingly sparse. You know, the Princess of Wales, according to this story, would show up alone. So let's take a look.
That's not true.
Oh, really? Hold on.
It won't be true. That won't be true.
Let's look at what she says, and then I'll get your reaction.
I used to dress Princess Diana.
You've dressed Michelle Obama, Helen Mirren, Beyonce, from Princess Diana, Princess of Wales. What was it like doing those things? Do they call you? Do you call them? Is there somebody who gets you together, a mediator?
Generally, it's all done through.
To a modern audience, it sounds almost impossible. The most famous woman in the world appearing at a designer's door without a visible security wall around her. It plays perfectly into the romantic public memory of Diana as spontaneous, human, and unguarded. But Jobson immediately pushes back on the idea that Diana was simply wandering through London alone. He co-wrote a book with Ken Wolfe, one of Diana's former protection officers, and his point is straightforward. A bodyguard did not need to be standing inside the studio for security to exist. The officer could have been outside, watching the street, checking that no photographers were waiting, and remaining close enough to respond if needed. Charles Ray adds the same practical correction. The fact that Diana rang a doorbell herself does not mean she had driven around looking for a parking space, slipped through Chelsea unnoticed, and walked in with no one aware of her movements. Royals and former royals can appear informal because the machinery around them is intentionally kept out of sight. That is the entire point of good protection. It should not always look like a wall. It should allow the principal to move naturally while making sure the risk is covered.
So sadly, but back in the day, I used to dress Princess Diana, and she would come to my tiny little cupboard of a studio in the back end of Chelsea. So that was before celebrity stylists got involved and all of that. So I had some magical times with Diana.
I mean, very clandestine meetings, I should imagine.
Well, I thought they were going to be clandestine, but not at all. I mean, in my ignorance, I thought, oh God, they'll send the sniffer dogs in before Diana arrives and all the rest of it. Oh no, the doorbell goes 10 minutes before she was due to arrive.
Public often mistakes invisible security for no security, and visible security for greater danger. In reality, the best protection is often quiet, boring, and barely seen. Diana's security history is complicated, and that complexity is often flattened whenever Harry's battles over protection are discussed. Diana did have formal police protection for years, and she also struggled with the loss of privacy that came with it. After her separation, and as her life changed, she moved away from that constant official protection, in part because she feared that those around her might be reporting back into the royal system. There were still people in her orbit, including Colin Tebbart, who worked closely with her as a driver and protective presence. But the public story has become a set of emotional shortcuts. One shortcut says the royal family abandoned Diana. Another says Diana freely chose total independence. Another says Harry's current anxieties prove he must be granted the highest level of protection whenever he wants it.
Yeah, but I mean, I wrote a book with Ken Wolfe, Diana's bodyguard. He would have been outside. He might not have had to go inside the studio, but he would, and he wouldn't. I think he once let her walk down. She said, "I really want to walk down a beach on my own." He gave her a walkie-talkie when she was down in Dorset, I think it was, and he met her at the other end of the beach. But no, he would have been outside just because he wasn't in the tiny studio. There was no need for him to be in there. He knew who she was going to see. There was no, and that if she needed him, she would have called him on the radio. So there's no way that the bodyguards had just left her to go walking through the streets to go.
None of those shortcuts fully explains the operational reality. Diana wanted normality, but normality was almost impossible for someone of her fame. Harry wants security, but he is no longer carrying out duties on behalf of the crown. Diana's officers could blend into the background because her world, for all its chaos, still had a recognizable royal structure. Harry's security arrangements often appear much more visible because he lives between worlds. Private celebrity, royal son, campaigner, litigant, and founder of a veteran-focused international event. That is why the comparison between Diana and Harry can mislead. Diana's apparent ease did not mean risk disappeared. Harry's visible protection does not automatically prove royal status. In both cases, the real issue is not how many people the camera catches walking behind them. It is what role they are performing and who is responsible for the consequences. That is also why the Martha Stewart episode landed with such force, even though it could easily be dismissed as lifestyle world gossip.
Where you visibly see Harry and Meghan's entourage, you know, the wall that they've built around them as they're walking along Bondi Beach, or the protocol we see with Prince Harry when he jumps out of the car in the UK. And they think Diana just seemed more relaxed about it than Prince Harry seems to be.
Well, she was more relaxed about it, and we're going to make this quite clear. There's a big misconception that Diana's bodyguards were taken away by the late Queen, which is not true. She herself was the one who gave them up because she was paranoid that she felt that...
Martha Stewart commented on Meghan's transition from actress to duchess to lifestyle and homemaking personality. And the sting was obvious because Martha is not just another celebrity with an opinion. She built an entire business around authority in domestic life. Cooking, entertaining, design, gardening, taste, competence, and consistency. Her brand may be polished, but it is rooted in the idea that she knows the subject. So when she appears skeptical of Meghan's lifestyle turn, the criticism cuts into the central problem Meghan faces with that brand. Meghan is not just trying to sell jam, hosting tips, kitchen warmth, or soft focus aspiration. She is trying to convert royal adjacency into lifestyle credibility. Stewart also said she had been at a California dinner where Meghan had recently returned from seeing the King and was talking about the trip. People later reported that a source at the dinner disputed Stewart's version and said Meghan did not discuss the European vacation beyond saying the family had a good time. That dispute matters.
All right, well, to a much more delicious tale, Martha Stewart has called out Meghan Markle for clout chasing, which I think is glorious. When Martha Stewart is side-eyeing your lifestyle credentials, that's got a sting. She told People magazine, one of Meghan's favorite publications this week, that Meghan Markle's jump from actress to princess to homemaking personality feels forced rather than natural. And then came the accidental tea. She revealed that she was at a dinner party where Meghan was also in attendance. And Meghan had just returned from Britain and was actually talking to...
It is worth being fair about it. We do not know every word said at that table. But the reason the story spread so quickly is because it matched a wider public suspicion that private royal access around the Sussexes rarely stays private for long, whether this dinner story was overblown or not. It fed the same anxiety that surrounded the Highgrove reunion. If the King opens the door privately, will that private access later become material for reputation repair, brand positioning, or carefully placed press? The Martha Stewart angle also reveals something about Hollywood and the monarchy. There is a tendency to assume celebrity culture and royal culture are the same because both involve fame, photographers, status, and invitations. But they are not the same. Celebrity rewards visibility. Monarchy survives on controlled visibility. Celebrity can turn private life into content and call it authenticity. Monarchy depends on the idea that not everything is available for sale or narration. That is why some A-listers seem far more drawn to the working royals.
Martha wasn't part of that conversation, she stressed. We know she has a relationship with the palace. She was talking about on Instagram King Charles's hot equerry recently. So we know she loves the palace. And she stressed she wasn't a part of the conversation, but she certainly noticed Meghan making sure everyone else was. I mean, I just think that this is a very poor reflection on Meghan Markle if this is true, Charles, because who's going to call Martha Stewart a liar?
Well, as you know, Kinsey, I'm not an apologist for Meghan.
And to the Sussex experiment. A photo with the Prince and Princess of Wales, an invitation to a state event, a place near the monarchy at a major ceremony, or a connection to one of William's causes carries a different kind of prestige. It is not just fame next to fame, it is fame next to institution. Meghan's challenge is that she once had that institutional aura by marriage and position, but after stepping away, she has had to translate it into something marketable. The problem is that translation can look forced. Lifestyle authority requires more than a duchess title. Philanthropic authority requires more than selected appearances. Royal authority requires service inside a system. When Martha Stewart questions the homemaking pivot, she is really touching the same nerve that critics have touched for years. Meghan's strongest asset remains proximity to royalty, but every attempt to monetize that proximity makes the original asset feel less dignified. Then comes the Highgrove meeting, which is probably the most delicate part of the current picture.
You are an A-lister, or if you are, somebody that's truly making it in the world, you want to be associated with the royal family. If you think about Taylor Swift, I've heard Reese Witherspoon turn down doing Meghan Markle's podcast at one point. So I guess that this tracks if you think about why Martha's allegiance might be towards the British royal family. If you think about demographic and the fact that, we've seen some A-listers say, actually, I want to be invited to the next coronation.
On 10th of July, 2026, King Charles is understood to have hosted Prince Harry, Meghan, Archie, and Lilibet at Highgrove, with Queen Camilla also present. For Charles as a father and grandfather, that meeting is easy to understand. He has not had normal access to those grandchildren. He is older, his health has been a public concern since his cancer diagnosis, and any parent in that position would feel the emotional pull of a child asking to reconnect. But Charles is not only a father, he is the king. That is where the personal and constitutional realities collide. A private meeting can be an act of kindness. A public embrace can become an institutional signal. And the monarchy has to think not only about what Charles feels now, but what William will inherit later. Robert Jobson's point is that the late Queen left Charles with the Andrew problem, and Charles could leave William with a Harry problem if he allows personal sympathy to create public ambiguity. Harry is not Andrew, and the issues are different, but the institutional lesson is similar.
This, something alluding to this, Prince Harry's relationship with King Charles seemingly improving. And now we're reading reports that he hopes King Charles will join him at next summer's Invictus Games in Birmingham, with organizers expected to extend an invitation to the monarch for either the opening or closing ceremony, as well as several sporting events. And according to insiders, Harry sees the 2027 Games as a defining moment and is determined to make them the most successful in Invictus history. Having his father in attendance would be deeply meaningful, according to the source.
Problems delayed at one reign often become harder in the next. William has been clear, through distance, if not through long public statements, that he has no appetite for a broad reconciliation on Harry's terms. His absence from the Highgrove meeting spoke loudly. While Charles was hosting Harry and his family, William was elsewhere, and that matters. If this had been a true family reset, the Prince and Princess of Wales would have been central to it. Their absence showed that the gulf is not just between Harry and the palace machine, it is between Harry and the future of the monarchy. The question of Queen Camilla's presence at the meeting is also revealing. Some commentators framed her role almost as a witness, someone there to make sure the conversation could not later be reshaped into a convenient version. That may sound dramatic, but it reflects a real problem created by years of public claims, memoir revelations, interviews, documentaries, and competing recollections. Camilla was treated harshly in Harry's memoir.
And it's going to be, this is a ploy, isn't it, that Harry always operates now, that he leaks out the story that he wants his father there, he needs a meeting with his father. And of course, that puts pressure on the palace. The ball's been whacked firmly into Charles's court. And yes, as the titular head of the armed forces, it does give him a bit of a problem. I personally think he'll think long and hard about this. He knows that actually the people around him know that it will actually give Harry more traction, and it'll make him more of a difficult problem for William. I think that what's he going to keep doing this if he gets?
And she has every reason to understand the risks of private family moments becoming public narrative. Her presence beside Charles would therefore be both personal and protective. It would reassure the king, steady the room, and make it harder for anyone later to claim a version of events without another senior royal having heard it. This is one of the saddest consequences of the Sussex rupture. Families need private rooms where forgiveness can begin. Monarchies need records, witnesses, and boundaries, because private rooms can have public consequences. When trust is strong, those two needs can coexist. When trust is broken, even tea becomes strategy. People like to talk about olive branches, but an olive branch only matters if both sides agree on what peace would require. If Harry's idea of peace includes a return to royal relevance, public platforms, and occasional duties while still living commercially in California, then the old half-in, half-out proposal has not died. It has simply been rebranded as reconciliation. That is why the Invictus Games question is so difficult. Harry deserves credit for Invictus.
And the king. I mean, this
and the king. Yeah, I mean, I'm not only just the king, but you've got to keep on factoring William into this. William's not interested at the moment of any reconciliation, and it'll be interesting to see when he is king what happens to Harry. But you know, we're talking about the Invictus Games. I'm always full of praise for Harry and the Invictus Games. It's his baby. He's done well out of it, and I don't mean financially. I mean he's done well out of it in promoting it and everything else. Is Meghan going to be there? You know, that would be the
is the strongest and most serious project attached to his public life. It serves wounded, injured, and sick service personnel and veterans, and it has given many competitors an international platform built around recovery, resilience, and dignity. Birmingham 2027 will bring the Games back to the United Kingdom, running from July 10 to July 17, and the official 1 year to go events at the NEC already showed how much emotional power the project still has. If the king were only a father attending his son's event, the question would be simple. But the king is also head of the armed forces. His attendance would carry enormous symbolism and would elevate the Games instantly. It would bring attention, legitimacy, money, and prestige. Those benefits would help the competitors and the cause. But they would also help Harry. They would allow him to stand beside the monarch at a major UK event and appear visually almost restored to royal centrality.
I bet your bottom dollar that Meghan will make sure that she's walking down beside him as well. You know, because that's what she really needs. She really needs that picture of Harry on one side, you know, and the king on the other. So I'm like Robert. I think there'll be people at the palace who will be thinking, oh God, no, we can't have this. It's not going to be. And there would be people maybe advising them, saying it might be a good idea because you are, you know, de facto colonel-in-chief of the armed forces. But there'll be others saying, you know, Harry will use this, you know, for his own ends. There's no question about that. And Meghan, they'll use this.
And if Meghan were there, the image would become even more loaded. Harry, Meghan, the king, veterans, cameras, and a public suggestion that the Sussexes are once again close to the heart of the crown. That is why some have suggested alternatives. A video message, a reception for competitors, a private gesture, or another royal representative. The aim would be to honour the service community without handing Harry a public tableau that can be used as proof of royal rehabilitation. This is the line Charles must walk. He can love his son without rebuilding Harry's public platform. He can care about veterans without letting Invictus become the stage for a Sussex comeback. He can see his grandchildren without inviting confusion over whether the half-in, half-out model is being revived. But that line is hard, because Harry's strategy often places emotional pressure and institutional pressure in the same package. If a story appears saying Harry would be deeply moved by the king's presence at Invictus, then declining can look cold. If the king attends,
happens here, Kinsey, it's going to be short-lived, because, you know, Harry's described William as his arch nemesis. Well, William, at some stage in the future, with the king living with cancer, is going to be in charge of the purse strings. He's going to be in charge of the whole train set, and he's not going to have his brother and annihilated his wife really, and called him his arch nemesis, and breached every trust that he could possibly do with his brother. He's just not going to. They're on a different, as Charlie said, they're on a different path, and it's a clear path that is to do with, I think, more like the late Queen Elizabeth, looking after the institution rather than worrying about.
It can look like endorsement. If the palace says nothing, speculation grows. If it explains too much, it feeds the drama. This is why briefing through the press can be so effective and so corrosive. It forces the palace to respond to feelings in a constitutional setting. It turns a father's private dilemma into a public test of compassion. And because Charles is known to be sentimental about family and duty, Harry's camp does not need to demand anything directly for pressure to build. The mere possibility becomes a story. That is what the old reporters understand. A leak is not just information, it is a move on the board. The legal situation makes the pressure even sharper. Harry and several other claimants, including Sir Elton John, Elizabeth Hurley, David Furnish, Baroness Lawrence, Sir Simon Hughes, and Sadie Frost, lost their case against Associated Newspapers in July 2026 after Mr. Justice Nicklin dismissed the claims. The judge concluded that the claimants had not proved the allegations of unlawful information gathering in the way required by the court.
We don't know, but he says it's to do with security. He attacks the free press. He attacks the free press and loses hands down against the Daily Mail. He then attacks the judiciary, which is independent, and calls it a whitewash. An independent judiciary that his father, as the king, is there to effectively stand guardian over. And then he sues the British government, which is his own father's government, which is an elected element of our democracy. Yet he lives in a mansion in Montecito. I don't understand. Well, I think the king sometimes, and I personally, I doubt whether the king.
Associated Newspapers then sought to recover costs, with reports describing very large figures and interim payment arguments. That does not mean every number thrown around in commentary is final, and it certainly does not prove who will ultimately pay what. But it does create an obvious question. If Harry faces a major legal bill, where does the money come from? Commentators speculated that King Charles might quietly help from private funds, just as royal money has been rumoured or reported in other family crises. Others argue that would be a terrible mistake, because the public would see it as a reward for a campaign Harry was warned not to pursue. Even if the money came from the king's private resources, many people would still suspect the public was somehow being asked to absorb the consequences. That suspicion may not be technically fair, but it would be politically real. The monarchy can distinguish private money from taxpayer money on paper, but public trust often works emotionally. If Harry attacks the press, loses to a newspaper publisher, denounces the result.
Biggest stories about King Charles in your career. I haven't had your reaction since the Highgrove meeting. Were you surprised by the Highgrove meeting, and have your sources told you anything about, the tone or how it came to fruition, or ultimately why it happened? Is it just a grandfather wanting to see his grandchildren, or legacy-wise, is Charles trying to avoid being remembered as an evil father who didn't give his son a chance?
I don't think Charles is thinking like that. I think Charles is sensibly a kind man. I did have a tip that it was going to be at Highgrove because...
And then appears to be rescued by his father. The lesson for many viewers would be simple. He creates the problem and the institution cleans it up. That is where the constitutional argument becomes bigger than family discomfort. Harry has criticised the press, the palace, the government, and the judiciary. He has fought over security decisions involving the Home Office. He has described court outcomes in harsh terms. He lives in Montecito, outside the working structure of the monarchy, while continuing to draw emotional and commercial power from his royal identity. The Crown, meanwhile, is supposed to stand above elected politics, uphold the constitutional order, and symbolise continuity through governments, courts, public disputes, and national change. The king cannot be seen to publicly align himself with a family member who repeatedly attacks the very pillars the monarchy is meant to dignify. That does not mean Charles must reject Harry as a son. It means he has to separate the private father
mistake, but at the moment, that's the impression the Sussex people are trying to get across, because it's the only way they've got left to make money, to still be hanging on to the coattails of monarchy.
So you do agree that the Sussexes are really the ones behind these leaked stories that Harry is 1 foot in, 1 foot out. He's almost there.
They have to be.
Let me pull up this email I got this week that, I honestly, I couldn't believe I was responding. I had to respond to it. But it's Simon Vigor. He has a new book about royal wives. He believes that...
From the public sovereign, the Duke of Windsor precedent comes up, because it shows how ruthlessly the royal family can act when a former central figure threatens institutional stability. Harry is not Edward VIII, and the circumstances are not the same, but the principle is still relevant. Once someone leaves the working centre of monarchy and builds a life outside it, the institution cannot keep reopening the door whenever it is convenient for that person's image. The crown is not a revolving stage, it is a role. And roles have rules. William's position is therefore crucial. He is not just an angry brother in this story, he is the next steward of the institution. One day, the purse strings, the estates, the offices, the tone of the reign, and the boundaries around non-working relatives will be his to manage. Charles may feel the grief of a father whose younger son is far away. William has to think like a future king, whose wife was targeted in Harry's memoir and interviews, whose family privacy was breached, and whose children's future will be shaped by the precedents set now. From William's perspective,
I think he's got to sort out. At the end of this month, a judge is going to turn around and say, you owe the Daily Mail X millions of pounds. He's got to try and find that money because no one else is going to fork it out for him.
Yeah, and it's my understanding symbolic has a legitimate case against him, and that's expected to go to court towards the end of next year. And that could be God knows how much money that he has to fork over to symbolic.
Have his hands full.
His father said to him, didn't he, before he started this? Now, I don't like using the word suicide, but I mean, that's basically what his father said to him. Why are you doing this? Taking on the...
Passion without boundaries becomes a trap. Every public concession to Harry risks becoming the foundation for the next request. Every photograph can become a headline. Every invitation can become leverage. Every private meeting can become a rumour of full reconciliation. This is why the Highgrove meeting, the Invictus question, and the legal cost speculation all connect. They are not isolated incidents. They are pressure points in a larger attempt to test how much royal access Harry can regain without returning to royal discipline. William is likely to be far less willing than Charles to blur that line. And in the long run, his view may matter more, because whatever Charles decides for emotional reasons now, William will have to live with institutionally later. The contrast with Prince William's Earthshot work is striking because it shows a different use of royal visibility. Earthshot is not about William proving he still belongs to the monarchy. It is about using royal status.
He was persuaded by a few lawyers that this was a system, like an ATM, where he could just say a few things, get emotional in the witness box and be paid out millions. Well, it didn't work because the system in this country, in the legal system, is independent and is rigorous, and Mr. Justice Nicklin did his job. Now, and I feel that, now, I think he will go cap in hand to his father, and I think his father may well write a cheque for him from his private bank account. He's a very loaded man, but the fact is we're not going to know about it, and it won't be coming from public funds, but we're not going to know about it. He'll write it from his...
Convene people, money, expertise, and public attention around environmental solutions. Kate Blanchette's praise matters because she is not simply an admirer standing at a distance. She serves on the Earthshot Prize Council and has seen the project from inside. Earthshot's model is practical. Identify finalists, select winners, award funding, and help scale ideas that address problems such as clean air, climate, oceans, nature, and waste. The prize borrows its name and spirit from John F. Kennedy's moonshot idea, but William's version is not about one dramatic national achievement. It is about repeating a cycle of optimism, investment, and measurable progress. every year until 2030. Critics sometimes say royals should stay away from the environment because climate has become politically charged. But that argument is too narrow. Homelessness can be political, domestic violence can be political. Mental health can be political. Veterans' care can be political. Almost every serious social issue touches government policy at some point. The royal question is not whether an issue has political consequences, it is whether the royal figure is campaigning for a party position or elevating a cause that can sit above party lines. On that test, Earthshot is on stronger ground than many critics allow. William is not standing at a lectern telling voters which party to support. He is shining a light on projects and entrepreneurs who are already trying to solve environmental problems. He is not asking the public to admire his feelings about the planet. He is using his platform to make innovators more visible to investors, businesses, governments, and consumers. That is exactly the kind of work constitutional royals can do well when they are disciplined. They cannot legislate, they cannot govern, but they can convene, they can encourage, they can make unfashionable or technical issues easier for the public to understand. They can bring celebrity into the room without letting celebrity become the purpose of the room. This is why Blanchette's involvement is useful rather than merely decorative. Her fame draws attention, but Earthshot's credibility depends on whether the finalists and winners can grow. The celebrity presence serves the project. In the Sussex model, too often the project seems to serve the celebrity presence. King Charles's environmental history adds another layer. Long before climate language became mainstream, Charles was talking about conservation, organic farming, sustainability, architecture, and the relationship between business and the natural world. He was often mocked for it. Now, many of those concerns are central to global policy and corporate strategy. His approach has always had a financial component. If businesses can make more money by being environmentally responsible than by ignoring environmental costs, then the market begins to move in the right direction. Through initiatives connected with sustainable markets, including the Terracotta Framework, Charles has tried to push private capital toward environmental responsibility. William's Earthshot is different in tone, but connected in spirit. Charles thinks in systems, markets, and long-term incentives. William thinks in storytelling, finalists, prizes, visibility, and the emotional power of optimism. Together, those approaches show how royal environmental work can mature across generations. The challenge for William will be whether he can continue Earthshot when he becomes king. As Prince of Wales, he has more room to champion a flagship project. As sovereign, he will need to be even more careful. But if Earthshot remains non-partisan, practical, and focused on solutions rather than ideology, there is a strong argument that it should continue. The planet is not a party political hobby. Clean air, stable ecosystems, less waste, and resilient communities are not fringe interests. They are basic conditions for national and global well-being. William's other work on homelessness strengthens that argument. He has been criticized by people who say a prince with immense privilege cannot credibly speak about homelessness. But that criticism misses the nature of royal intervention.
No, gentlemen, Cate Blanchett has offered high praise for Prince William's work on the environment after serving alongside him on the Earthshot Prize Council. The two-time Academy Award winner, again, when we talk about some of the A-listers, like enamored with the working royals, described the Prince of Wales as extraordinary and a hands-on leader, adding that his commitments to conservation is something he inherited from King Charles and Prince Philip. Her comments carry particular weight because they come from someone who's worked with William directly. Earthshot has become William's flagship initiative focused on finding practical solutions.
William is not claiming to personally solve the housing crisis by writing a single check. He is using his visibility, the Duchy of Cornwall's resources, charitable partnerships, and public attention to push the issue into a more practical space. The same is true of Earthshot. A royal cannot personally invent every clean technology, restore every coastline, or remove every microplastic from the ocean. But a royal can help move people who do invent, restore, and build into a brighter spotlight. That is convening power It is not the same as executive power, and it should not pretend to be. The best royal work accepts that limit and uses it well. The worst royal adjacent work confuses attention with achievement. That is the difference between a prince fronting a prize that funds real-world finalists and a celebrity duchess trying to borrow credibility from every room she enters. This is why the old reporting memories matter at the end as much as at the beginning. Jobson and Ray's stories from the road remind us that monarchy is not only what is printed in a press release, it is what experienced observers learn by watching how people behave when the cameras are not perfectly arranged. Diana's designer visit looked informal, but the protection was likely close. Harry's Invictus work is admirable, but the royal optics around it are complicated. Charles's meeting with his son may have been emotionally understandable, but it did not heal the divide with William. Martha Stewart's comments may be disputed in detail, but they landed because Meghan's brand still depends on royal proximity. Earthshot may involve celebrities, but its substance is stronger because the celebrities are attached to a practical mission. Each case teaches the same lesson. Appearances are not enough. A royal story has to be read through structure, motive, consequence, and trust. The monarchy survives when access serves duty. It weakens when access becomes a bargaining chip. Diana understood instinctively how powerful informality could be, but even her most natural moments existed inside a world of security, staff, planning, and risk.
I think William is great because he's a great front man, and he does communicate and present very well. When he launched it, and there was Sir David Attenborough, and they were doing the walk together, talking about these things, I think he's a great front man. People have criticised him because they say, oh, well, he's got enough money to solve homelessness. Well, yeah, but he's a figurehead who can actually help transfer formal homelessness, and that's what he is doing here with his A-listers and bringing people together. He's a great convener. But the only thing I would say is hopefully he'll be allowed to continue this when he's king. And the reason I think he should be allowed to is because
the Sussexes often seem to want the emotional power of Diana's informality without accepting the institutional structure that made royal life possible in the first place. They want privacy when privacy protects them, publicity when publicity benefits them, family when family softens their image, independence when rules become inconvenient, and royal association when the market needs a little extra shine. That combination may produce headlines, but it does not rebuild trust. Charles may still choose private kindness. He probably should, where grandchildren and family wounds are concerned. But public royal status is another matter. Harry cannot be half in, because half in means half accountable, and the monarchy cannot function on half accountability. William's future reign will almost certainly make that clearer, not softer. The hopeful part of the story is that there is another model already visible. William's Earthshot work shows how royal attention can be used without turning the royal into the whole point. The project is not perfect, and no prize can repair the planet by itself, but it points in a healthier direction. It brings together scientists, entrepreneurs, activists, investors, public figures, and communities around solutions. It lets celebrity amplify substance rather than replace it. It takes the inherited environmental seriousness of King Charles and translates it into a format that fits William's generation. That is what modern monarchy needs if it is going to survive beyond nostalgia. Not endless family drama, not controlled leaks, not glamorous proximity, but useful convening around issues that matter. The old royal reporters had to earn their stories by being present. The working royals have to earn their relevance the same way, through presence, consistency, and service that outlasts the headline. In the end, the Crown's most valuable currency is not access, it is credibility. And once credibility is spent too casually, no palace, no group chat, no celebrity dinner, and no carefully staged reunion can buy it back quickly.